Welcome back to America on the Road with Chris Teague, Jack Nerad back with you. We're so glad you're with us. We really do appreciate you listening to America on the Road. We know you have a lot of choices, so we're very appreciative about the fact you're listening to America on the Road. And it is road test time. Something we love to do is drive other people's cars, other manufacturers' cars, and then tell you about them. And Chris, a fascinating vehicle you have this time around, the Acura ZDX Type S. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it's been an interesting week, Jack. As you know, and our listeners know, I own or bought a Honda Prologue a little earlier this year, and this is the Acura version of that vehicle, which itself is built by General Motors and is a version of the Chevrolet Equinox EV and the Cadillac Lyriq and a bunch of other vehicles that are kind of share the same architecture. But very interesting compared to the Prologue here, and I want to get your opinion in just a minute, but you can get the 2025 model in 3 trims. It starts in the mid $60,000 range. My Type S is the range topping model, and it's around $76,000 or so before taxes and options. Jack, have you driven the ZDX at all? And if you did,
I have not driven the ZDX. I drove the Prologue most recently at North American Car of the Year testing a couple of weeks ago in Ann Arbor. So I probably have a feel for it, and I bet you're going to tell me they're pretty similar.
They are very similar. However, the Type S model I tested is a little bit more performance oriented, but I'll get to that in just a minute. So the base model has rear wheel drive. You get a single electric motor on the rear axle, 358 horsepower, 313 miles of range, which is not too bad for a rear wheel drive EV these days. The next upgraded model gets 2 electric motors, so you get all wheel drive out of this. 490 horsepower and 304 miles of range. So still pretty good range, a lot of horsepower there. My Type S model came with 499 horsepower and 278 miles of range. So, Jack, almost 500 horsepower in a 5-seat SUV here. You know it's going to be quick. So 0 to 60 is in the mid 4-second range, which is pretty darn eye-watering for a family vehicle. But it's not like shocking. You know, you get into like a Genesis GV60 with the boost mode, it kind of makes you feel the blood move in your face a little bit. This isn't quite that abrupt, I'll say, but still very quick and much quicker than our Prologue Elite, which is also a dual motor all-wheel drive version. So Acura pipes in a little bit of fake engine noise here, which I found interesting, but it's very subtle. You just hear a little rumble when you put your foot down, and it does add a little bit to the experience, though I kind of enjoy, if you're driving an AV, I do enjoy the silent treatment of the engine there. The interior is otherwise pretty quiet, Jack. You know, I talk about our road quality here in Maine quite a bit. We haven't had the plows hit the road yet, but they're still quite bumpy. And this vehicle does a good job of soaking up most of that. And it doesn't feel crashy or boomy inside. So there is a good amount of sound deadening in this vehicle. And as I mentioned, the ride quality is good. You know, I think the wheelbase in these vehicles is not exceptionally long, but it is long enough that you do get good stability and decent handling. I mean, I wouldn't take this to a track and expect any, you know, mind-blowing numbers out of lap times or anything, but definitely sportier than the Prologue, and in a good way too. So it's not.
Does it feel heavy, Chris? I mean, you know, these battery electrics have that kind of heavy feel to them, I think, when you're cornering.
It does, and I'll say that you feel it most, and I said this about the Ford Mustang Mach-E too, you feel it most over like speed tables or speed bumps where it feels like the vehicle just doesn't want to go over it so much. You know, you come back down and you feel it there. But it's not abrasive in it by any means here. And, you know, like I said, the ride quality is very good. So no complaints. So this is a 2-row vehicle, not a 3-row. It seats 5. You get leather upholstery is standard. My Type S model had red heated and ventilated perforated leather. So definitely a very sporty looking interior, even if the exterior is kind of Honda Prologue-esque. The front seats are wide. They're very nicely padded. And you got a lot of legroom in this vehicle because you don't have the transmission tunnel. And as I mentioned, the wheelbase affords good space inside. Excuse me. You also get an 11-inch digital gauge cluster, an 11.3-inch touchscreen. And this is another one of those Google built-in vehicles we were just talking about in the last segment. So you get Google Maps, Google Assistant, and a lot of other features from that. And it does improve the basic Honda Acura infotainment system. Even though you kind of have the General Motors skin on this system, it does look very similar to what you get in the Equinox EV or the Blazer EV. You get an 18-speaker Bang & Olufsen stereo in the Type S, satellite radio, HD radio, ambient interior lighting, You get wireless charging, which is one of the few wireless charging systems I've used that actually works consistently because it holds your phone vertically. And then Acura equips a full suite of advanced safety equipment. You get blind spot monitoring, forward collision alerts, and so on. One thing I do want to mention that the ZDX gets that the Prologue does not in some trims is General Motors SuperCruise. So you can run hands-free, which I've done on Route 1, which is one of our major highways here in Maine, and it works just fine. It works the same as it does in the Cadillac Escalade and some of the GMC models, so no complaints. Jack, I think other than the price here, I think, if you can deal with the price and you want an Acura, you get the performance and the styling from an Acura, and you get some of the good stuff like a more usable infotainment system here than you did in previous generations. So all in all, I liked it.
I mean, I'm fascinated by a couple of things. One, that General Motors would allow Honda, or Acura in this case, to use their high-tech self-driving feature and put that out there, but I guess they like people to do that. I'm also kind of curious as to your thoughts about how many people, like how big a segment is the super high-performance electric SUV segment? I mean, I got to believe that's minuscule, but apparently everybody thinks there's money there.
Yeah, people are buying them, I would assume, because we kind of shifted from the speed as a side effect of electric vehicles to speed being the focus of some of these vehicles and that instant acceleration. So I think people are jumping on board. It's definitely a selling point for some.
Yeah, it's